今天我们来到了传说中的康蒂翁。康蒂隆是1900年到现在没有停止过酿蓝比克。这是一个糖化的糖化锅，这边是一个更大的糖化设备，那感觉好像没有在使用了吧？
如果它现在其实这些设备都没有在使用。
对，是个历史的文物，现在都是文物。蓝比克啤酒它最特别的就是不会人工加入酵母，麦汁糖化好之后呢，会在这个传说中的 coolship 慢汁冷却槽会隔夜放一晚上，然后去自然接种空气中的菌群。这个小阁楼呢，是咱们在很多书籍啊、视频中看到过的，它是整个康蒂翁蓝比克酒厂最珍贵的一个区域。虽然是敞口接种空气菌群，但是也会比较稳定的产出。很激动，而且没想到是这么开放。本来以为它是会把它封闭起来啊，咱们也看不到。现在不仅能看得到，而且触手可得。来到了桶陈间，还有一些彩虹桶。这边会加一些果汁，做一些增味的蓝比克。装瓶的灌装线。
I suppose you know something about Lambic,
Of course.
Spontaneous fermentation beer. Cantillon is the last brewery still in activity in Brussels, and we founded in 1978, the museum, to save the brewery, because 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s were black decades for traditional Lambic. Since 20 years now, a lot of people are asking for traditional Lambic, a lot of people are asking for Cantillon beers, but during 30, 40 years it was very, very difficult. And we opened the doors of the brewery to the people, to the public, to explain why a traditional Lambic goose, Kriek or raspberry is so different compared to an industrial one.
Yeah.
And the museum saved the brewery, and we still continue to welcome visitors here, about 40,000 visitors a year, to visit the brewery, because we are still working with this material from the 19th century, and to show them how we produce and we brew traditional Lambic.
I have been a big fan of your beer for a long time, so today is heaven for us. And I don't think you need more marketing, because everyone knows about Cantillon among the beer community in China. But I'm sure today you have maybe some new thoughts, introduce us some new beers, what is going on here, like what are you brewing and what is your plan in the future?
Oula, that's a lot of questions.
Yeah. So perhaps let's start with this beer, right?
Let's start with a Kriek. Let's start with a Kriek. Our goal, yes, we will produce some new beers in the last decades, but in fact we brew here only one beer. We brew only Lambic. With this Lambic, later we produce the other types of beer. And for us, the most important thing is to continue to produce traditional Lambic.
Yeah.
Because Cantillon represents the tradition, the Lambic history, especially in Brussels, because we are the last Lambic brewery in the city. Our main goal is to promote Lambic. But with Lambic, you can produce a lot of different beers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Most classic are the fruit beers, naturally.
Yeah.
The classic fruits, cherries, raspberries.
Yeah. Like this one? It's
like this one. So Kriek is the Flemish word to describe the sour cherry.
Sour cherry.
Because the best pairing with Lambic, we obtain it with sour fruits. Yeah. But we can work with sweet fruits like grapes, for example. Mm. But for me, the best results we obtain it with sour fruits. So sourness coming from the beer and sourness coming from the fruit.
Cool. So maybe we can spend some time to appreciate it's a beer a little bit.
And it's a 2019, so it's a 5-year-old beer. Still very fruity.
It's very easy to drink, even for people who don't drink beer or don't drink Lambic very much. Kriek is a very good start.
Lambic and beer based on Lambic are considered as a bit the link between two worlds, wine world and beer world.
Yeah.
And that's why it's easy to drink for people who like natural products, natural wine, natural cider, champagne, or this type of beer.
Yeah.
This beer will be a way more difficult to drink for people who like sweet things, sweet beers, soft. That's but for people who like natural beers, natural products in general, it's easy to drink. We have a lot of friends in the natural wine world. It's always very nice for me to work with such people, to collaborate with such people, because if we don't produce the same products, we cannot compare wine and beer naturally. So we don't produce the same thing, but we are speaking exactly the same language, with the same philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's always, for me, very nice to work with people with the same philosophy, speaking the same language.
Yeah, I think you use a lot of grapes and a lot of different kind of barrels from the wine industry a lot, right?
All our barrels are coming from the wine industry, all with a leasing company. Leasing barrels companies. They rent it, in fact, to the winemaker. They take it over after 5, 6, 7 years when the winemaker uses all the tannin coming from the wood.
Yeah.
So we don't need tannin. We're using wood to have an exchange in between the beer and the air. Lambic is a natural oxidative beer.
Yeah.
And so we buy in second hand those barrels to the leasing company. We also work with barrels coming directly from the winemaker, and one more time from France, but there we are working with small volume. We speak about 3, 4, 5 barrels, no more.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to list, because for the winemakers, they might want the new barrels more, right? And you want some little bit, wine inside. So I think it's a working business model.
The most important thing, if every time you found back in the wine, in the whiskey, or in the lambic, the previous beverage who were present in the barrel, that's beautiful.
Nice.
And no cleaning.
So besides the barrel, what other fruits, any interesting experiment you have been doing over the last
The last very interesting experiment was the Ashanti. The pepper. It's really a great success because the beer and the pepper are working together in a super good way. So lambic is present, pepper is present. You have some spiciness in the beer as well. It's maybe not a beer easy to drink like a goose, but it's the perfect beer for a pairing. For food, it's a beautiful beer.
Do you think the trend is good, the way the brewers try to experiment?
I always say we have to stay humble. When you think that everything is going well today and it will be the same forever, certainly not. And I'm lucky enough to work in the brewery since the late 80s, and I lived the dark days for Lambic.
Yeah.
And I always say to my crew, to my son, never forget the past. Life is a wheel, and the wheel is always turning. So we are today at the top. We were 25, 30 years ago at the bottom. What about within 10 years? No one knows. So today we have a lot of success. Today our production, we produce here 2,400, 2,500 hectoliters, which is a medium production for a traditional Lambic brewery. We cannot produce more because of a question of space. We don't have space enough to produce more. It's not enough regarding the demand, the worldwide demand. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, the demand will decrease. That's why I always say that we have to stay humble to continue to produce our beers in the same way, as best as we can do. Always defend Lambic, promote Lambic, because even if the beer is a beer with a huge success today, this beer always needs information. This beer always needs promotion. And that's what we do with the museum.
Yeah.
Because even if Cantillon is a success brewery today, the doors of the brewery are still open, and we still welcome 35,000, 40,000 people every year.
We just had a self-guided tour. Thank you for letting us. And it kind of surprised me because we know this is like a sacred place for lambic lovers in the world, and we just toured the entire process, the entire production line. Every part was so open, even including the coolship. You know, it was locked, but with a key inside the lock. Technically, someone can unlock and ruin the place. So, why you keep it so open?
It's because there is no secret. You know, the secret for Cantillon Lambic is the nature. We welcome here every year 8 to 10 interns. They are coming here to learn, we teach them, and so they try to reproduce time to time lambic in their own brewery later. But it's not a problem for us, because I think who more we will have good spontaneous fermentation beer on the market, who better it will be for traditional lambic. And the second thing, it's quite sure that every lambic brewery, include Cantillon naturally, in the building, his own type of microflora. Yeah. So it means that it's impossible to reproduce exactly the same beer as it's impossible to reproduce a Cantillon lambic. It's naturally possible to produce a spontaneous fermentation beer everywhere in the world. But here, during more than 1 century, we developed in the building a specific microflora. Our secrets are
the air,
in the wood, on the walls, everywhere.
As you might or might not know, like some breweries in China have already spent a lot of time to learn and spend a lot of resources to brew spontaneous fermentation beer of lambic style, like a sour beer. So, like for breweries in China, those kind of breweries, do you have any advice, like how we can brew good lambic style sour beer in a totally new place?
No advice, but work with passion, with your heart. Believe in your product. Stay close to your product, because if you are producing spontaneous fermentation beer, your product is alive. It's important. We produce wine everywhere in the world, and all the wines are different. So all the spontaneous fermentation beer are also different. That's why it's so nice. The most important thing in a lambic brewery is not to brew lambic. We brew always the same beer. It's to blend lambic, to produce a beer not with the same taste. It's impossible to produce a standard beer, but to produce a beer with the same base. A beer that people can say, okay, that's a Cantillon.
So now, since we already had a few drinks, I want to ask you some questions. I don't want you to feel like offended, but I and also some people in China, sometimes we are interested, because there are some rumors saying that, only leaving the malt, like in the coolship for only one night, right?
Mm-hmm.
One night. Yeah. How is it possible to get enough like bacteria and yeast from the air? So there's a rumor you have a like mystery box, or like the bacteria and the yeast within the barrels are more important than in the air.
No, the last analyze made on lambic, it was in 2011 or 2012, so a bit more than 10 years ago. The most important yeast for lambic is the Brettanomyces bruxellensis. We worked for those analyses with the University of Ghent. Believe me or not, but after the brew, the day after, so after the night of cooling, we don't have any Brettanomyces in the world. No Brettanomyces on the wood, no Brettanomyces on the walls. So it's a natural way. So bread is present for sure, but in so small volume that you cannot found it in the world. And so step by step, with the time, the population of bread is growing to be totally alone after 3 or 4 years. I understand your question. And one more time, when you're working with the nature, today we are living with the big industry. And when we are speaking about nature, it's always a type of mystery.
Yeah.
But believe me, we never had any yeast in the world. And all the yeast are coming, as I told you, from the building itself.
So after one night of being in the cool ship, the malt will directly flow from the cool ship to the fermentation tank.
No fermentation tank to the barrel. We are working with 2 different boiling kettles. One is full with a wort with a high sugar gravity, the other one with a low sugar gravity. Okay? Because of the cool ship is totally full, we cannot mix correctly those 2 different worts.
Oh, okay.
And so the day after, in the morning, so we first fill the other tank to mix correctly. And directly, and we're working by gravity, so we let the wort run into the wooden barrel for the fermentation. As I told you, except twice for 2 Zwanze beer, 2010 and 2013, we never use any yeast or bacteria. In the Lambic, when you're working in a natural way, you have more than 100 different types of yeast and bacteria playing a role in the fermentation. 16 yeast and 8 bacteria are playing a major role in the fermentation. We cannot add so much different yeast and bacteria. It's impossible. Don't try to replicate the natural work. As human, we cannot do it.
After today, I really believe you because you left everything touchable to us. You know, we saw everything, the entire process. I believe there's no mystery, you know, only the nature.
And if you can come during the week, when we are brewing during the week, people are visiting the brewery when we are brewing. One more time, we have no secrets. The secret is here. It's the building itself. It's impossible to store in it.
Because you are talking about stealing, so I want to ask you, like, how do you feel about, like, some brewers might collect the liquid or like the remaining yeast and bacteria and try to brew their own beer? So how do you think of that?
They can try, and if it works, congratulations.
Okay.
I know a lot of people are doing it, but no problem. I tasted for some of those beers, and it's a nice product. Time to time not, but it's never close Cantillon Lambic. The people who start to produce spontaneous fermentation beer try to work with your own environment. That's the best way to do. Try to work with your own environment, and it will take time. Because when I taste spontaneous fermentation beer made by breweries who just started, the first years the beer is always a bit tasteless, you know, a lack of character, a lack of body. But with the time, you see that it changed. And I think one more time you have to create your own environment in your building, and it takes time, simply. If you are working with the nature takes time to build it. Time doesn't respect what we are doing without it. Because everything, if you want to produce something right in a natural way, it takes time. Always.